The moon was bright, and the smoke rings the old man blew into the cloudless night swirled, and to his eyes gave shape to dark faces upon its glowing surface. He stood leaning on an ornate staff at the edge of a great forest, waiting alone for a host of enemies to ride out and meet him. If all went according to plan, he would engage them in peace talks, outlining various border arrangements to prevent further incursions onto Wizard Land, and thus alleviate some tension between the riders and the village. He and the others of his order were hermits, who above all else did not wish to meddle or be meddled with. For years they had been content not to intervene in any of the countless raids that had left so many other communities in ruin. Now, violence seemed inevitable as the riders expanded their territory, inching ever closer to the village. In the earth, he heard their approach, and then soon saw them like a dark wave covering the land in shadow. Horsemen in numbers far greater than anticipated or agreed upon began to surround him. They came to a halt in front of him, and some of the riders reared their mounts and parted the formation to make way for their leader. A tall man on a massive horse, Lincoln, was an intimidating foe. He rode right up to the old man, close enough for the horse's breath to warm his face. Lincoln did not wait long to speak. "Sparrowheart, you have come alone just as you promised. I fear you did not trust the word of a wizard in light of all our dealings, and greet you now in great numbers. I pray you will forgive this grievous blunder. Do you still agree to the terms?" Sparrowheart, for that was the old man's name to all who knew him, lifted his head once Lincoln had fallen silent. "You riders must be a curious people indeed, for it is a strange custom to break the rules of an agreement and then ask if the other party intends to keep their word. Never you fear, Lincoln. Alas, how could I possibly deny you? I am only one man against a great host. I am without defense." Lincoln laughed at this. "Do you really believe we are so foolish to think any Longcloak is truly without defense? Tell us what your council of old ones has decided, and let us dispense with these insipid games. My men are tired and hungry. We had hoped for swift negotiations." "And you will have them," cried the old man, almost jovially, if not for the half-scowl on his face. "The others of my order do not trust you either. I am here against their wishes. I do not wish for open battle, nor do I think we would likely survive against your numbers. I would have us come to an arrangement tonight and return to my peers with hopes of peaceful cooperation. They will be angered by my deeds this night, but they will regret the cost of war dearly if they do not heed me." "What wizard's trick is this?" Lincoln shouted. "You would have us believe you're doing us some favor?" Some of the men chuckled at this and gave each other looks. "If this is true and your council of old fools will not hear reason, then why should I leave you alive? As you said, you and your people will not survive against our might. I intended to spare you all only if you were prepared to do what's right. This is no longer a negotiation." "Then we will have bloodshed?" asked Sparrow. "It is not my wish, Longcloak, but I do not have day hours to waste on lesser men who stand in the way of progress. The choice to spill blood is entirely up to you. Leave this place or submit yourselves to our holy cause. If not, then yes, we will splay your claret upon the grass and dip our bread in your severed necks to celebrate the acquisition of new land and the manifestation of our destiny." "So that is it then, Clockmaker?" "Yes, just as you call us Longcloaks, we also have names for your kind. Tinkerers of dark materials and sciences, keepers of hours and minutes. You tell time and therefore cut off from the natural order. You will pass into ruin exponentially faster than your doomed predecessors. I take my leave." "Go then, old crow," shouted Lincoln. "Sparrow you are called. I think crow is more fitting. So back to your nest, crow." Sparrowheart tipped the brim of his hat and made for the trees. As he walked away, he said, "Be wary, warmonger. You will pass away like a match lit and tossed aside in the rain." Lincoln gripped the reins tightly and spat. He raised two fingers and pointed at the old man. In acknowledgement, one of the riders drew a pistol and pulled back the hammer, took aim at the wizard. Hearing a metallic click, Sparrow spun on his heels and pierced the earth with his staff. A low rumble, barely audible but frighteningly powerful, shook the ground and distorted the very air around them. The gunman's hand imploded into itself and then exploded into crimson mist. The others began firing wildly in the wizard's general direction as he spun the staff around like a baton, swatting away bullets like flies before they ever reached him. He outstretched his free hand, and suddenly birds came pouring from the forest behind him in black swarms and began feasting on the riders, tearing their flesh apart and devouring strands of them like worms from the dirt. A bullet caught Sparrow in the shoulder, and he doubled back. Flames from his staff, an answer shot, setting man and beast ablaze. Some of the men screamed and ran away into the night, or shot themselves as they were being burned alive and devoured. Sparrow clutched his shoulder and pulled his hand back to see that it was red and wet. He formed a circle and flame around his person and sank to his knees. Most of the riders were too busy fleeing or dying to pay him any more attention. Only Lincoln was unscathed. He dismounted and walked straight toward the old man, his burning troops parting like some perverted Red Sea before his steely visage. He walked right up to the ring of fire and stepped past it. Sparrowheart leapt up and whipped his staff in the circle with one hand, creating a gust of wind that knocked Lincoln to the ground, planting his face in the fire. He yelled and struggled to stand. His face and wide-brimmed hat had been burned, and he tossed it aside and spat. "I will wipe you and all of your kind from the face of the earth." He reached for his pistol and fired. The bullet hit home and Sparrowheart was knocked on his back. Lincoln walked over to him slowly, menacingly. He fired again to the wizard's lifeless body 3 more times and then crouched beside him. "You've lost. I just want you to know before you close your eyes forever, there is no God waiting for you, no paradise. You and your ilk will suffer the fire eternal and be erased from history. When we record our conquests, we will write of our dealings with you only as footnotes. No one will ever remember a man called Sparrowheart." The wizard coughed up blood as he began to laugh. Lincoln grabbed him by his collar and lifted him up. "Why are you laughing?" he shouted. Shook him wildly, but the old man only laughed more heartily. He took Lincoln's head in his hand, leaving behind bloody war paint. "You will die in humiliation, and I will be laughing then too." He shook him again. "Silence!" he screamed, and then threw the old man down again. He aimed the pistol at his head and shot him between the eyes. The laughter ceased, and the wizard fell silent. Lincoln stood there assessing the body and the carnage around him. Weakness, he thought. All of them are weak. They cower in fear of some parlor tricks of magic fire. He wiped sweat from his brow and holstered his gun. He turned to leave, but sudden movement from the wizard's body stopped him in his tracks. The old man's chest began heaving madly, and the body started to convulse. There was movement under the surface of the wizard's skin like fingers pressing against stretched leather. Lincoln stepped back slowly, cautious but mesmerized. A black beak covered in gore pierced the wizard's chest and started to gnaw its way out of the body. Once it had eaten away enough skin and viscera to break free, The bird pushed itself out of the bloody hole it had made and took flight, soaring into the darkness of the forest. The sparrow's heart had come to life once again and returned to its people. Lincoln watched it fly away, wondering what ill tidings this omen could mean. He looked down at the body and scowled. The man had died, with a smile on his face.